I want you to think about the last time you sat in your doctor's office and they said, "Good news, your blood pressure is down to 120/80. You probably felt relieved. Maybe even a little proud. You had done what you were told. You were taking the medication. You were watching the salt. And the numbers on that little screen confirmed it. You were doing everything right. But what if I told you that for millions of people over 65, hitting that so-called perfect number is not a victory? What if that number, the one your doctor is celebrating, is actually the reason you feel dizzy when you stand up from the sofa? The reason the room tilts for a split second when you go to the bathroom at night? The reason you almost grabbed the wall last Tuesday and didn't tell anyone about it? Stay with me for the next 15 minutes, because what I am about to share with you is something most doctors genuinely believe, but the newest research is quietly overturning. And it could change how you think about one of the most important numbers in your life. Let me paint a picture I want you to recognize. You are 72 years old. You have a morning routine. Tea, perhaps some toast, a quick check of the news. Then at some point during the day, you stand up, from the armchair, from the dinner table, from the side of the bed, and for just a moment something shifts. A slight heaviness behind the eyes. A faint pulling sensation. The world doesn't quite spin, but it doesn't quite stay still either. You hold the doorframe. You wait. It passes in a few seconds and you carry on. You have mentioned it to your doctor. They nodded and said, "That's just your body adjusting, stand up more slowly." And you accepted that. Because you are sensible. Because you trust your doctor. Because surely if something were wrong, they would catch it. But here is what your doctor may not have told you. That brief dizzy moment is not your body adjusting. It is your brain receiving insufficient blood flow. And the medication that is keeping your blood pressure beautifully controlled at 120/80, sitting still in a clinic chair, may be the very thing that is pushing you to the edge of a fall every time you stand up. That is not a small thing. A fall at 72 is not what it was at 32. It is a fractured hip. It is surgery. It is 3 weeks in rehabilitation. It is the beginning, for too many people, of losing the independence they spent their whole life protecting. So why does this happen? And why, if this is real, is your doctor still aiming for 120/80? Let me give you the science in the simplest way I can, because once you understand this, the whole picture changes. When you were 45, your arteries were like a new garden hose. Flexible. Elastic. When your heart pumped blood through them, they absorbed the pressure wave smoothly and distributed it evenly. Blood flowed easily. Your brain, your kidneys, your eyes, they all received consistent, reliable pressure. After 65, those arteries are more like a garden hose that has been left in the sun for 20 years. Stiff. Less responsive. When your heart pumps into stiff arteries, the pressure wave behaves differently. It cannot be absorbed and spread the same way. Which means your body, your specific 65-year-old body, actually needs a slightly higher baseline pressure to push blood effectively to your brain and your organs, especially when you are upright and blood has to fight gravity. This is not a flaw. This is your body adapting intelligently to its own physiology. Now here is the second piece. Your body has a safety system, tiny sensors in your blood vessels called baroreceptors. When you stand up, your blood pressure naturally dips for a fraction of a second, because gravity pulls blood downward. Your baroreceptors detect this instantly and send an emergency signal. Heart rate up, vessels tighten, pressure restored. In a healthy young person, this entire compensation happens in under 2 seconds. You never feel it. But these sensors slow down with age. They become less sensitive. They respond later. So if your baseline pressure is already sitting low, if your medication has brought it down to 122/76, and your baroreceptors are sluggish, what happens when you stand up is that your blood pressure drops from 122 all the way to 88 or 90 before your body even begins to respond. Your brain notices. You notice. And that is the doorframe moment. A large study published in JAMA Internal Medicine, tracking over 15,000 adults aged 75 and above for 5 years, found something the headlines largely missed. The group with the lowest mortality rate, the fewest falls, the best kidney function, and the sharpest cognitive performance was not the group with blood pressure below 120. It was the group whose systolic pressure sat between 130 and 145. The group below 120 had a 28% higher rate of serious falls requiring hospitalization. They had more acute kidney injury. They had higher overall mortality than the moderate group. Not the high group. The low group. Let that land for a moment. The people hitting the textbook perfect number were dying at a higher rate than the people whose doctors were still working on their blood pressure. Before I go any further, I need to be clear with you about something important, because your health matters too much for half information. There are situations where high blood pressure is a genuine and urgent problem that needs treatment today. If your systolic pressure is consistently above 160, especially combined with headaches, blurred vision, or chest tightness, please speak to your doctor this week. That level of sustained pressure carries real risks of stroke and heart damage and should not be left unmanaged. If you have had a stroke, a heart attack, or you have diabetic kidney disease, your targets may genuinely need to be lower, and the research supports more careful management in those specific cases. What I'm talking about today is the enormous number of people, healthy, active, independent adults over 65, who are being treated to an aggressive target that was designed for 45-year-olds, based on studies that were largely conducted on middle-aged people, and then simply applied to everyone without adjusting for what changes after 65. If that sounds like you, keep listening. I want to tell you about a man I will call Robert. Robert was 76 years old. Retired civil engineer from Manchester. Sharp as a tack, walks his dog every morning, does the crossword, has lunch with his son on Sundays. He was the definition of an active, independent older man. 2 years ago, his blood pressure at a routine check was 146/84. His GP was thorough and conscientious, genuinely trying to do right by him, and started him on a low-dose medication. 6 months later, the pressure was 128/76. His doctor was pleased. Robert seemed fine. But Robert's wife noticed something Robert hadn't mentioned. He was holding the banister on the stairs now. Both hands. He had never done that before. And twice in the past month, she had seen him pause at the bottom of the stairs with his eyes closed for a few seconds after coming down. He told her he was just taking a moment. He was not taking a moment. His brain was recovering from a brief episode of insufficient blood flow. When Robert finally had his blood pressure checked standing up, not sitting down in the clinic chair, but actually standing, his systolic dropped from 128 to 91 within 30 seconds of rising. 37 points. In a man whose brain needed adequate pressure to function at his age, with his arterial stiffness, with his slower baroreceptor response, his perfectly managed blood pressure was quietly starving his brain every time he stood up. His medication was adjusted. His target was revised upward to 138 to 142 systolic. Within 3 weeks, Robert told his son at Sunday lunch, "I don't know what changed, but I feel more like myself than I have in 2 years." His heart hadn't changed. His age hadn't changed. What changed was that someone finally treated Robert, not his number. Now let me give you a simple test you can do at home tonight. It takes 3 minutes and it could tell you more about your real blood pressure risk than a year of clinic readings. You need a home blood pressure monitor. They cost around 25 to 30 pounds and are available at any pharmacy or online. Here is what you do. Lie flat on your bed or your sofa and rest completely for 5 minutes. Then take your blood pressure while still lying down and write down both numbers. Now stand up. Immediately, without waiting, without sitting first, take your blood pressure again while standing. Write down those numbers. Now compare the two systolic readings, the top number. If your systolic dropped by more than 20 points when you stood, you have what doctors call orthostatic hypotension. That is a clinical finding. It means your blood pressure medications may be pushing your sitting pressure low enough that when gravity pulls blood downward on standing, your brain is not receiving adequate flow. You are at elevated risk for a fall, even if every reading your doctor has ever taken looked perfect, because those readings were always taken sitting down. Write those numbers down. Bring them to your next appointment. If your doctor dismisses them, ask specifically, "Could my current target be too low for my age and physiology?" A good doctor will engage with that question thoughtfully. So what should blood pressure actually look like after 65? Let me give you the ranges the evidence currently supports, not as rules carved in stone, but as a framework for an informed conversation with your own doctor. For adults between 65 and 74 who are generally healthy and active, Research suggests a systolic range of 130 to 140 offers the best balance, enough protection against stroke and heart damage, without the risks of orthostatic drops. For adults between 75 and 84, the evidence supports a slightly higher range, 135 to 145 systolic. This accounts for the increased arterial stiffness and the slower baroreceptor responses that are simply part of being that age. For adults over 85, or for those who are frail at any age, a systolic of 140 to 150 may actually be the safest place to be. At that stage, preventing a fall and preserving quality of life is often more important than aggressive pressure reduction. And the diastolic, the bottom number, should generally stay above 65 for older adults. If your diastolic is consistently below 60, that reduced pressure during the heart's relaxation phase can reduce blood flow to the heart muscle itself. Mention it to your doctor even if the top number looks fine. These are not reasons to stop your medication. They are reasons to have a better conversation about where your personal target should sit. Here is the truth that I think you deserve to hear plainly. The guidelines that told your doctor to aim for 120 over 80 were built primarily on research done in middle-aged adults. The assumption was that what is good for a 50-year-old must be good for a 75-year-old. And for decades, nobody seriously questioned that assumption. Not because doctors were careless, but because the data on older adults specifically simply didn't exist yet. It does now. And it is changing the picture significantly. The problem is that new research takes years to become new guidelines. And new guidelines take years to change daily clinical practice. In the meantime, millions of older adults are being treated to a target that may not serve them, and nobody is taking their blood pressure standing up to check. You now know something that most people your age, and honestly, many healthcare providers, don't yet fully understand. You know that your arterial stiffness and your baroreceptor responses are real physiological changes that affect what blood pressure numbers mean for you specifically. You know that the goal is not the lowest number, but the right number for your body, your age, and your way of living. And you know that standing up slowly and holding the banister is not just being careful. It may be a sign worth investigating. Take the orthostatic test tonight. Keep a blood pressure log for 2 weeks, morning and evening. Bring it to your doctor not as a complaint, but as a contribution. Say, I want to understand what target makes sense for me at my age. Can we look at this together? That is not being difficult. That is being the kind of patient who lives independently for another 20 years because they asked the right question at the right time. Your body is not failing you. It is simply working differently than it did at 45. And it deserves treatment that understands the difference. Leave your age in the comments. I want to know who is watching. And if someone you care about is on blood pressure medication and has ever felt dizzy standing up, share this with them. You may give them a conversation that genuinely protects them. I will see you in the next one.